Welcome back to the Human Nexus podcast. My name is Andrew Brazis. I'm a business and marketing consultant and a private chef.
Welcome back. My name is Miss Laura Machiste. I am an online tarot reader, holistic massage therapist, and energy coach. And today we are talking about all things Halloween, spirit, ghost, witches, seance, everything that can fall under the Halloween theme.
All those
And
spooky stuff.
yes, spooky season is here and upon us. So we're going to start it off with Andrew because Andrew has actually partaked in some seances, and I am very interested to know
Yeah.
what was needed for them.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So the seance ritual itself, I did two. The one big one that I did was with multiple people,
Hmm.
and effectively, it was with the witch that I mentored with, and she set the setting. So incense, she lowered the lights,
Hmm.
and this is really important in a minute, but it was pretty dim, lowly lit room, and it was in the evening. I want to say there was like 8 to 12 people there,
Oh, wow.
and we sat on like a typical long rectangular dining table,
Hmm.
and I sat next to her, which in retrospect was like the wildest decision I could have made.
Right.
Um, and she essentially said like a prayer mantra in the beginning. And she said some other things. This was 10, 11, 12 years ago or something. So it's,
Hmm.
not super fresh. But when things started to happen, essentially we all started holding hands, kind of like you're like saying prayer at dinner kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And eyes closed, looking down. The energy in the room in this process started to get dense. Have you ever experienced this when you walk into a room that's maybe a little heavy?
And you like
Uh,
can't breathe.
Kind of. Yeah. The can't breathe. You almost feel like, I hate to use the word anxious because just the setting
Mm.
alone is probably going to make anybody anxious.
Right.
Um, and I remember, so if, uh, do you have experience like meditating at all?
Yeah, I've meditated a couple of times.
So when I've meditated in the past, I feel like I go through like these levels of consciousness,
Hmm.
and how I perceive the world in those states is just a little different. Not that it's like weird or anything, but I felt like the group consciousness almost, and like we were going
Wow.
through these like layers essentially. And I happened to open my eyes
Oh
in the
gosh.
middle of this like happening, and everybody's like eyes closed, looking down, like again, like praying at the dinner table kind of setting. And the it almost was like the room was spinning, but it wasn't. Like not I wasn't spinning, but it
Hmm.
looked like the lights were like moving around the room.
Oh my
And this
gosh.
was like it almost felt like a theatrical event. Like post processing the event, I was like, was she like putting things on? Was this even real kind of thing? Because of
Yeah.
like that experience. And so this is happening. And before, she said, if I start to do anything, say anything in a different voice, she said, just know I'm channeling, everything's safe. She was
Mm.
like, she was like, I might grab things, I might get up and walk around, push things, just let me do my thing. And we're all like looking
Good thing
around the
she
table, like, oh shit.
disclaimered. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And so things start feeling like more and more dense. That's the only way I can describe it
Right.
energetically. And as these things are happening, her, and mind you, this woman's 83, something, 78, late 70s, early 80s at the time. She's
Hmm.
holding my hand, and her grip is like getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I'm like, oh, like
Hmm.
she
Oh
might
my
crush my
God.
hand. Um, and then the first one, she started talking as like a young girl, like a young child. And I don't
Mm.
remember the child's name. And for reference, her home is a historic building. I want to say it was like one of the first, what was it? Like maybe like the town hall in the area, which is a relatively large town in Indiana.
Right.
So it has like a ton of historic significance, and there's been known happenings in the home.
Mm.
And she said that this girl has came up before, but before this was prefacing again, sorry, I'm
Okay.
bad at telling stories, but she said that there might be some people that come through, and that's totally normal and expected. So this little girl came through, and she was just talking about her experience through or as a little girl. So
Hmm.
little girl voice. Someone at the table was like, "So, like, what's your name?" And she told her name, and what do
Hmm.
you like to do? And she was like naming off like things that a young child would like to do, but they weren't things that were happening in the modern era. They were like,
Right.
I don't know, like going on my rocking horse and, looking
Hmm.
outside at animals, but there was no, I think somebody asked a question about cars or like modern technology, and the girl just
Mm.
like didn't respond and kept shaking her head. And when I say like she's
Wow.
talking and like shaking her head, it's like very animated, like very
Yes.
animated.
Okay, I know what you mean.
Which was like maybe she's putting this on kind of thing.
Right.
So that happens, and the girl kind of like the witch got really tense, and as she lightened her grip, the voice kind of stopped. And
Hmm.
then another one came in, and it was a young male, and he was telling us that he was recently murdered. And he went
Oh,
through, it was like
wow.
a drug deal that went wrong, and he like went through, he said who the guy was who murdered him. He said like how it happened. He explained
Wow.
his like journey from dying to like essentially when he died, he was like confused, didn't know what was going on. He like went to his family's home as like a spirit, an entity,
Right.
and was like confused and like couldn't contact people. And then he realized that he was actually dead and was kind of like wandering around. And
Wow.
she was speaking
Hmm.
in the voice of like a male.
Wow.
And so like her either her vocal range is insane or
Right.
like these things were coming through her, which is like one of those things of like, is this real? Is this actually
Right.
happening right now? And when these entities were like in her body again, like my hand is getting smashed, like just completely, utterly
Hmm.
like crunched. So that goes on. The entity leaves her body or whatever. And as that happens, she kind of comes to, we have like a closeout ceremony. And then once that closeout ceremony happens, the energy in the room got a lot less dense.
Hmm.
And then everybody at the table was kind of like, what the hell just happened? Like, there's no way that this actually went on. And
Right.
then it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, I was at her house. I used to hang out there, like, just like, I don't know, eat cake and like drink coffee and just like shoot the shit with her.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the days I was there, it was late, and she puts a newspaper on the table dated from that week. And it was the guy that had gotten murdered, and it was his like the guy that murdered him, the dude's name, his obituary, and she was also a block away from a not a cemetery. What are they called?
A
Funeral home.
morgue.
Yeah.
Oh. Funeral.
And she also believes that she was like on a ley line,
Hmm.
which is a whole other discussion. But so essentially, these energies like flocked to her house. And since reading the news article, I was like, dang, like maybe what I experienced was real, which really shifted a lot of things for me.
Right.
Um, And that in and of itself, after what isn't so scary, but like during, like it was like she was possessed. That's the
Right.
only way
Yeah.
that I could explain it. And it was
Hmm.
it was madness. It was utterly insane. And then getting the confirmation was just it's one of those things where you can't tell somebody about the experience truly
Hmm.
unless they experience it for themselves. Not saying you should go and like do a seance. Like if you do, I think you should, be safe about it. But
Right.
yeah, that's the seance experience.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I feel like that is something that like I would be open to like being part of, but like not the channeler. No way.
Yeah.
Uh-uh. Don't put no nothing inside of me. But that's so interesting as well because a lot of like Halloween movies and a lot of like scary stories and a lot of those
Mhm.
like things, they are a lot of the times revolved around like someone getting possessed and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So I want to say that those types of things, I feel like if you're allowing it to happen as like she did and felt comfortable,
Mhm.
she even disclaimed you guys in the beginning, like this is
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I feel like there are just certain people out there that are like vessels for these people. And like sometimes no, I've never done a seance. I attempted. Okay, no. We like just like lit candles and like made like some salt situation
Mhm.
and like tried to like access somebody and like I'm not really sure if it worked. But obviously like there's ways to do it. I'm sure she knew exactly what she was doing, but that's the also the same reason why I don't mess with those types of things because I
Yeah.
don't feel like I know exactly what I'm doing. So like when me and my friend attempted to like see if anybody would come through, it wasn't like that like allow them to channel, allow them to do something. It was
Mhm.
just kind of like, well, we'll see if we see something. And it was just kind of like your regular little shadow there, shadow here, but there was nothing like super like prominent. So
Shadows is a good way to
that's
describe
crazy.
it. Like when I said like the lights were dancing, it was like there was I think of what is it? The Princess and the Frog, maybe. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
Disney movie, and there's like a voodoo guy, and he like when he comes in, there's like all these shadows dancing around, and like
Mm-hmm.
the room gets really dark. That's kind of what it was like. Like I say, it was like the light was spinning, but that's really what I mean. Like there was, it seemed like there was like shadows dancing in a circle. It was very
Right.
strange.
Are you
Um,
the only one who opened up your eyes, or like other people opened up their eyes too?
no, I actually, so when she was talking as the little girl, I had one of my really close friends there. And she was like squeezing my hand, and I looked over at him, and he looked over at me, kind of like if shit gets weird, like we're gonna have to like, because I think we were the only two males in the room.
Uh-huh.
It was mostly females, and we were like, oh, like we might have to do something, because we were both like, oh shit, like this is getting serious.
We
Um,
might have to fight the spirit.
yeah. But she was really intentional with cleansing before and then after, like thanking, whatever is out, like the creator. I forget how she worded it. And then she also, when she opened and she closed out, she
Mm-hmm.
went through, I have this written down in a notebook somewhere, but she went through essentially like 9 dimensions individually and like
Ah,
closing like all
closed
these
each one.
portals. Yeah, which is really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that
And
is
she was
interesting.
like gassed afterwards. Like it was like, and again, it could have all been a show, but I think from the confirmation of the newspaper, for me, it was like, oh no, this was legit.
So
Um,
she was gassed afterwards, like after the seance, like super high vibe.
well, after the seance, she was like low energy. Like she
Oh,
just
okay, low
like
energy.
exhausted, like
Mm-hmm.
completely exhausted. She was moving slower. She was
Mm-hmm.
like talking a little slower. It was almost like, when you wake up from a nap, like right
Yeah.
after, and you're kind of like groggy. That's what it was like.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I want to say some of us, she was asking for confirmation on like who came up. And we're like, oh, it was a little girl.
Oh.
And she was like, oh, that's such and such. Oh, it
Mm-hmm.
was this new guy. And she's like, oh, he's new. I haven't seen him before. But like it's like
Mm.
she's experienced these people, some
Right.
of them at some capacity.
That's so interesting that you mention like the
Mm.
guy who came through and like specifically like told y'all like this is who did it, this is what happened, like this, that, and the other. Because I had a spiritual advisor. I mean, she's still like living, but she has MS, so she doesn't like really like
Mm.
practice anymore. And I remember one of the stories that she told me was that she was like astral projecting or like
Mm.
whatever in dream world, and like she accessed like someone's like I don't know, like it like once again it sounds like really crazy, but then same thing, the newspaper
Yeah.
thing, she sent me the newspaper. So like weird that that has a connection there. Um And basically, she figured out that someone was planning to kill someone else. So
Mm,
she tried to get into the girl's subconscious and like tell her, like,
yeah.
something's about to happen to you, like, don't go here, like this, that, and the other, like, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day in the newspaper, it was that
Mm.
she was murdered. And it was the same exact
Oh
girl. And I
shit.
thought that was like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
wild.
I was like, what? And then I was just kind of like, okay, like this is like the beginning of things. It wasn't the beginning of things for me. So I wasn't totally like believable. And like now, like I understand more, like we do share the same subconscious or like
Mm.
consciousness. We can communicate with each other in whatever way, shape, or form. But she claimed like she spoke sentences, like she tried her best to like get this person to like understand, like, do not go here tomorrow. And I guess the girl woke up like, oh, that was a regular dream, and
Dang.
went there and it ended up like happening. So
That's
that is
insane.
creepy.
That's really intense. Do you have any like scary, I don't know, Halloweeny stories?
Um,
Like to
so
you personally?
I've never like actually like I've experienced like the weird energies and like stuff like that, but like most of my
Mhm.
life I always just said like I don't want to see you people, like don't show me your spirit, don't show me your ghost form, like I don't want to deal with it right now or at all.
Yeah.
But then when my dad passed away, I was kind of like, okay, no, I'll see him. And that was really the only experience I have with like seeing a spirit.
Hmm.
And like those LED lights on the top of like the ceiling, like he
Hmm.
burnt those out as like evidence that, because I didn't believe it even after seeing it. I was like,
Yeah.
no, I must be tired right now, although it was like 11 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
Um, which I also find interesting as well, because everyone is so like, of the nighttime, but I saw a spirit in the day. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
at night.
Sure.
And I definitely feel like I only gave it a certain degree to allow to come in. Like even though it was my dad, I still feel like I had like that fear-based energy where it wouldn't like allow. So I kind of feel like although like ghost spirit, gremlins and goblins, whatever you want to say, like I feel like you still have that like no, like you can't access my energy, like that's it. But if
Hmm.
like you want to do that and you want to mess around with these types of things, then go ahead. Like there are people online that actually have like one of those like ghost things, like ghost detectors, and like they
Hmm.
love this type of stuff. Like they are
Yeah.
looking for the ghosts in their house. They want to talk to them. They want their ghost to possess the stuffed animal so they can laugh. Like I'm not like that. So
Yeah.
I feel
Same.
like the one time of seeing a spirit, I was like, okay, this is cool. I know who you are, so this is great. And then like once he realized that like I couldn't hear him, which makes sense now that you're explaining the seance with that witch where she had to close a couple dimensions. I
Hmm.
wonder if like him coming through, like maybe like one, two, and three was open,
Yeah.
but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, where like audio would be wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, but to the feeling aspect, I same type of feeling. Like I was anxious, but it like I had a rapid heart rate, but it
Hmm.
wasn't an anxiety attack, because like I know what anxiety
Sure.
attack feels like, but like I felt like my heart was like beating really, really fast, but it wasn't a fearful feeling. It was more of kind of like a, oh my God, what's going on right now
Yeah. It
type
was
of
just you were
feeling.
just like elevated, kind
Yes,
of.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then like I think once he realized that like I couldn't like hear him, he like showed his being in like a kaleidoscope. Like it
Hmm.
kind of just looked like a bunch of patterns like intertwining with each other. I don't know if you ever watched the movie Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds.
I don't
It's like
think
a
so.
spiritual movie. I definitely recommend. I actually just watched it like 2 weeks ago, and they perfectly showed an image like what it looked like at one point when I was like seeing my dad in like spirit
Interesting.
form.
Yeah.
And it was just all of like these like shapes just intertwining together with each other, and it was just like this like weird thing, and it was just like my jaw was like open half of the time like in the experience, and
Hmm.
also when I watched that movie, seeing it looks so
Well,
like
I wonder if
familiar.
like somebody who made the movie had a similar experience, and that's just like,
Right. Well,
yeah.
they were explaining like something about like the way energy looks when
Mhm.
like how like everything has a look or everything has like a field of energy on it. It's just up to the observer to observe it. And then when you don't
Yeah.
observe it, it's not doing anything, like those types of things. So I feel like with that, I had that like, okay, hold on. Spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them, like we have access to them through the veil, but
Mhm.
it's kind of all up to us on if we like really want those things to happen or not. And I mean, that's where it goes hand in hand with like paranormal like activity type of things where people like feel like they moved into a haunted house, like what happened to you in that one episode that you were explaining where you felt like you were being choked. Like,
Mhm.
did you have that like same like curiosity at that time, like
Um,
spirits and stuff like that? Like, were you working with that witch around that time? Like, was your energy like
so
open and receptive to it?
so that was post. Well, so I grew up
Oh, that was
in I
after.
yeah, that was after. So I grew up in uh my parents were never married, so I had
Hmm.
a split childhood, if you will.
Hmm.
And one of the houses that I lived in, we had a lot of weird stuff happen. Like for
Hmm.
example, the dryer door would slam shut. Just I
Hmm.
like and you look in there and the dryer door is wide open and everybody who's in the house is in one room together. And it's
Right.
like, oh, what the hell was that? And that would happen multiple times. The
Hmm.
other the other house that I grew up in, which was my dad's, it was uber haunted. I mean, it was so haunted.
Oh my gosh.
And I was young, and so I
Hmm.
think just being in those environments
Right.
just like made me more aware. And I spent a lot of time alone as a child. So like
Hmm.
child being alone in those environments. Plus, I was raised Christian. So I'm saying that because when I would see these things happen, it immediately went to, oh my God, demons, devil, evil,
Right.
Satan kind of stuff, which triggered unnecessary fear. Not that those things
Right.
weren't terrifying, but I just
Hmm.
like labeled it, which I think made it worse.
Right.
Like, for example, in my dad's house, there was this, I would sleep on the couch in the living room, and there's these stairs that went up stairs, but they were like kind of center in the living
Hmm.
area. Um, and nobody ever hung up upstairs because it was just like dense, like super heavy.
Hmm.
Even knowing that as a child, like I would go up there and see like, I don't know, stuffed animals moved around. Like
Mm.
nobody's there. I would like go into a room, see a stuffed animal in like a location, leave the room, come back in like 10 minutes and it's moved kind of thing.
Hmm.
Just weird paranormal stuff. And one night I was sleeping there and so on the couch, I was sleeping above the couch. There was a like Last Supper photo with like a little
Hmm.
light on, from like the 80s or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like everyone had in their homes.
Hmm.
I woke up in the middle of the night one night and I saw like what do they call him? It's like the shadowy figure with like a long brimmed hat, long trench coat. He's got a name, like in uh,
Oh, I know what you're.
I think he's like the Shadow Man or something like that. Um,
That's gonna get me on my next question for you, but continue on.
so I wake up.
Hmm.
I could be dreaming, sleep paralysis, whatever, but I see
Right.
this thing walk down the
Hmm.
stairs. I'm
Right.
full of fear, and then the light with the, Christian or Last Supper
Hmm.
flickers, goes out and falls off the wall. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 10, 11. I'm
Right.
young, and I'm just like in full panic mode.
Hmm.
And then I, cover myself up in the covers, go to sleep, wake up, and everything's fine. But it's like that kind of stuff happened a lot, either if I was there or
Mm.
like back in the other house I was at. And so when things like that happen after the witch experience with the knowledge, I don't know, like I felt not that I was calling it in, but maybe it was either my awareness,
Yeah.
um, or just my, I don't know, willingness or want to, I don't know, I want to say like
Yeah.
not fight those things, but like purge it outside of myself. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Well, that's actually what I tell people too, because they always ask me, like, oh, how do you feel things or how do you see things? And I'm like,
Mm.
if you're open to it, you'll see it. if you're not open to it, it's not going to happen for you.
Yeah.
So that might have just like shown that realm, like, oh, this guy went to a seance. He's totally open to us like doing things. And I feel like when those things happen, whoever is the most aware, they're gonna try to contact. Like I've seen
Yeah.
it and felt it. Like even like if I have like people like a friend that maybe I haven't seen since whatever amount of time, if like they passed away or a friend's mom or something like that, sometimes I'll think or feel like their energy and their presence. And this one like old friend of mine, like I didn't even know she passed away, and I had a dream of her. And then like a couple days later, like it started to like be more out there more. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just had a dream about Beata. And now I'm seeing that she's
Yeah.
passed on. So I kind of feel like in whatever way, sense, or form you're most open to it,
Mhm.
I feel like they so badly want to feel alive and like feel connected still, that I feel like they're just gonna hit anybody that they can get with that.
Yeah.
And you were just right there and perfect for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. It's one of those things of like, once you have experiences like that, they don't, I don't know. Like, for example, when we first connected
Mm-hmm.
and I had that
Oh yeah.
dream, or like, I was like, hold on a second. I wasn't like, at this point in my life, I'm really comfortable in those environments of like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, different energies coming in. And I was like, oh wow, this is really strange. But it was like the same kind of like feeling of like, okay, this isn't my energy in the room right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whose is it? And we had just connected. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's got to be hers. But it feels different. And something that feels different is
Mm-hmm.
like, should I be afraid of this? Should I welcome it? Is it
Right.
good? Is it bad? Which, yeah, it was great. But
And that's so interesting too, because I'm most open to like figuring things out and finding things out and wanting to know something if like I don't feel or want to know if I am making the right decision. So when you told me that like you felt that energy like after our first meeting, I was like, well, that's not surprising to me because I know my spirit guides passed on loved ones. Like I know they like to like give me answers. So obviously they're going to have to access your energy to give me the answer from your energy. And it was just kind of like good vibes. I had that dream that I said in our first episode. So I like to feel that like either my spirit team or passed on loved one team really does do their job, you know? So
yeah,
the fact that you felt that energy like makes me feel good too, and being like, okay, they are doing their job. Like I always thought in my life like that, like my brain was like stalking people, and I'm like, how do you know these things? And now
mm,
like now that I'm more like advanced, I just think that like I get told things. So I feel like they were just like, well, let's access Andrew's energy, let's figure out his intentions, let's give her a dream about it, and then move through. As since that moment I haven't had a dream, but since that
yeah,
moment I have no more like, is this the right route to go? I already
right,
know this is the route. So since I
yeah,
have no questionable fear, they don't feel the need to give me any sort of clarity on it. They're probably like, all right, she has the clarity, she's going with it, and everything is fine. But the weird hat man person,
yeah,
there is a couple shows that like I
mm,
do want to get onto like scary like shows or movies and stuff like that, because I feel like that is also a good thing for relatable type of conversation, because there might be some people on here that have that as well. Do you have any type of like scary movies or scary shows that like really stood out to you in a spiritual way, where you're like, wow, I love the way they put this together?
I don't watch them.
You
I like,
don't.
no, not that I like, I have so much spiritual trauma as like a child from like shit
Oh,
like that
great.
happening. I'm just like, I don't need it in my brain. Like if I'm like
Right.
with friends or something, like let's watch it. I'm not gonna be like, oh no.
Hmm.
Well, actually, I might. But
Yeah.
if I have the choice, but I
That's
don't expose
interesting.
myself to it because I just it's too
Hmm.
close to home. So I
Have you
just
ever watched like Hocus Pocus and stuff like that? Like
Mhm.
your
I love
classic
Hocus
Halloween
Pocus. Yeah,
movies?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Hocus
Like those
Pocus
ones
is
that
really
don't
good.
instill the fear.
Yeah, Hocus Pocus is really good.
Have you ever heard of Edgar Allan Poe? Obviously, yeah, right.
Yeah, I love Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay. So this is
surprisingly.
why I asked this question, because I
Mm,
am not a horror movie watcher, but
mhm.
I will watch psychological, quote unquote, scary things if they give you like something to think about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want just like your regular possessed doll,
Like
like,
if it's not like possession or spiritual, I'll watch it.
mhm. Okay. So did
Yeah.
you ever watch The Falling of the House of Usher?
Oh.
Okay, you
Like
have
Usher the
to watch.
singer?
No, like Usher, the Edgar Allan Poe,
Oh.
like an Usher, like
Yeah.
back in the day type.
I'll have to I'll add it to my list.
Usher the singer is so funny. So he's probably on Vinny's list too. So he is a horror movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, so there is this one stood out to me so much, and I actually think I'm gonna rewatch it like once we get off of here because it's October 22nd. Might as well get some spooky things in, and I like to rewatch things that I already liked because it doesn't give me
Mhm.
that fear factor type of situation. Anyway, so it's called The Fall of the House of Usher, and each episode is based on an Edgar Allan Poe short story. So,
Nice.
like, the last episode is The Raven. The first
Yeah.
episode is like the Red Dance, like where like
Mhm.
everybody like whatever at the dance, and then
Mhm.
the Pendulum is one episode, but it all connects in a storyline. And when I tell you, this was probably one of the most like intriguing, like scary things that I've watched, that I kind of like forgot it was scary and just loved like the literature aspect of it
Mhm.
and like the meaning of it. And I don't want to like spoil anything for you because I want you to watch it, but it's one of those shows where like the first half an hour of the first episode connects to the last half an hour of the last episode.
Dang, that's good. What is
Yeah.
it streaming on? Do you know?
I think it's on Netflix. It's called The Fall of the House of Usher, and it's about like the Usher family, and it explains like why they have like these. It basically, I think it's like a limited series, so it only has like 8
Mhm.
episodes, and they're based off of the Edgar Allan Poe short stories. And Edgar Allan Poe was actually one of the first things that freaked me out when I was a kid because you learn about it in English class.
Yeah. We
So
actually
that
went to yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Didn't
No,
mean
no,
to
no, you
interrupt.
keep going. I was going to say
I was
that instilled fear.
no, I was gonna say we went to when I was in English class, this was like middle school. We went to like a Broadway production of it or something in
Hmm.
Chicago, and that was terrifying. Like just
Right.
like being on like or not being on stage, but being there and then just the whole production
Hmm.
and yeah, that
Yeah.
was like real fear.
Right.
But
Why is that in seventh grade? Like that should
I
be
don't
in
know.
like junior year of
Yeah,
high
I
school.
have no idea.
Yeah.
But that fear
Hmm.
for me is different than like a spiritual, I don't know.
Right.
You
I
know what
get
I
what you're
mean?
saying. It's more of like that made up fear where like they try to get you to be scared of things type of
Yeah,
vibe. Yeah. Like
yeah.
you're like stereotypical fear
Right. Right, right.
of like kind of what you said before. Like those like ghost goblins and just things like that where it's kind of like, okay.
Yeah. But I think too, well, Halloween itself,
Hmm.
like where the veil gets thinner,
Yeah.
like that whole idea. The witch that I mentored with, she would throw like witch parties. I never went to one, unfortunately.
Oh,
I got
wow.
invited, and now I regret it. But they would like do serious witch Halloween stuff. And now I wish that I would have had some of those experiences to share.
Right. Dang.
Um,
That would have been so cool.
yeah,
I feel like I was maybe a witch in my past life in some type of degree, but I don't feel called to like,
witchcraft.
yes, I don't feel called
Yeah.
to it in this lifetime. Like I feel called to like use what I have in a logical way and kind of just
Mhm.
like move forward with it, like in those types of things. Like my sister has like the more witchy things where she gives me like a bay leaf for this or put this here, put that there. Um, so that would have probably been really cool to get some type of witch indications from people that like actually like practice this stuff. It's funny enough, actually, this is an unlocked memory. my mom would go to play like bingo every
Mhm.
Saturday. So my dad would either take us to NYC or he would take us to like random places. It was always places that he wanted to go. He was like, "Well, kids, you guys are movable, so you're coming with me."
Mhm.
So we went to this bar, okay, and it was like a bar restaurant. Like he wasn't putting us in like weird bar situations. And then there was this lady who had purple eyes, and she was a witch, and he was like, "This is your witch now." We took a picture with her. It was like the most like exciting thing in the world. I'll never forget like this purple eyed lady. Like my sister like left the picture of it. Like, and back in the day, you took the picture and you printed it, you know. So
Mhm.
like there was like this picture of this lady with like purple eyes, and like whether it was contacts or not, that was like one of my first indications, like, oh my God, like witches are real, or like real people actually
Do
practice
which, yeah.
witchcraft. Yeah.
Mhm.
And although my dad was like a super logical Gemini, he still like loved all those types of things. And he loved like Edgar Allan Poe and those things like that. So I find that like really interesting to see those connections. And I do want to ask a question about crows and ravens, because now I'm thinking about it, and that does have
Mhm.
like a connection to like the spooky stuff, because that is one of the birds that people are like most fearful of.
Yeah.
Um, which you got to watch that show.
Mhm.
But when before my uncle passed away, my dad's brother passed away 2 weeks before my dad died.
Mhm.
And before my uncle Stephen passed away, in our backyard, I kid you not, we have like 5 huge trees. Every single one of the trees, there was like 50 crows in each tree. Like it looked
It's a lot.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very obvious. It was like, okay, like this is, you don't see this every day. You don't see almost 200 crows in your backyard. Like
Yeah.
things like this just don't happen. And then like a couple days later, my uncle Stephen passed away, and then my dad heard about it, obviously, and within that 24 hours of him hearing that his little brother passed away, his cancer spread throughout his whole body.
That's
So
insane.
I want to know your indication on some type of like crow symbolism. Like, do you
Mhm.
feel like that is a thing? Because then I think about Edgar Allan Poe, and he used the raven, and like that's a black bird, and these birds were black, and like all he wrote about was death and stuff like that. So, like, the messengers of that, do you
Yeah,
feel like they are them?
I think they're definitely messengers, but I don't like see it as like a bad omen. I have two ravens actually on my two raven tattoos on my arm.
Oh,
Um, yeah, I don't think that it's a bad sign, but I do think it's a way for like, I don't the universe, whatever, or whoever to like
hmm,
speak through us, like to us, because
right.
they know, like, for example, you seeing that sign symbol, you
Hmm,
immediately was like, oh yeah, this is what it is. Like you were able to, I don't
right.
know, identify it quickly.
Hmm,
And I think that goes more to say like how you view the object versus what the object might actually mean. Does
right,
that make
right,
sense?
right. Yeah. Well, that's why like it goes to like all of like these Halloween. Like Halloween was a thing at one point in time. Like
Mhm.
what was it called? Like All Hallows Eve before it was
Mhm.
like Halloween. So it like these things have like transformed throughout like life, and ravens, crows, those types of things were prominent around this time, and prominent with witches. Like all the time you see a witch, she's probably holding a raven, or she got a black cat,
Mhm.
like those types of things. And I definitely, yeah, I agree,
Well,
because that could make
speaking
sense.
of that, um, which is I could be wrong, so comment if I am wrong, the
Oh, I
people
don't know.
listening to
Let's
this.
see. Oh,
Um,
yeah, the comments.
but yeah, but witches believe in familiars, like animals that are, lifelong friends or whatever.
Mm,
And the witch that I mentored under strongly believed that she had a dog and two cats. And she had like the same version of those three animals throughout her life, at least as if I remember correctly, is how she explained it. And they
Mm-hmm.
were like her one dog would like say I love you, like it would speak.
Wow.
Obviously, she trained it to do these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she essentially said that these things followed her through, and one of her indications of
Oh.
that was one of her indications of witches and like how people have like for example, I have a cat right now,
Mm-hmm.
and like the cat kind of found me in a sense, but I've
Mm.
always had like a pet around me.
You know what's so weird that you're saying that? When my sister was in the apartment, like before, like when she moved out and then moved back in, a cat found her, and she's the one that practices the witchcraft.
Mhm. Yeah,
And it's a tuxedo cat. It's black and white.
interesting. I
Oh my
think
gosh, it's weird. I didn't think about it that way.
yeah,
Like
I
one of her
think black cats
students.
get a bad rep just
Oh
because
yeah, but
culture
they're
and
they're cute and sweet. I've been
yeah.
around a couple of black cats. They're like really nice.
Uh,
Yeah, no, that's really crazy though. The whole like witch thing, because that would make so much sense. Because like my sister just like randomly wrote to me one day, and she's like, "Oh, one of my students have like 12 cats, and they want to offer me one for free." And I was just like, "Oh yes, kitty, yay! Like take
mhm.
it."
Yeah.
And she wasn't able to have the cat in the apartment, but the relationship didn't work out anyway. So the cat's here now anyway. And weird enough, in here, the other her area, is
Mhm.
where she did all the witchy stuff. So it was like the
Yeah.
cat was like, "Nah, gotta go back to my home base. Where's all the
Yeah.
vibes?"
Yeah, it's so strange. But I think familiars are a real thing.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, you have to watch that show. There's also another one that I really like. It's called The Haunting of Hill House. That one might be a little bit more creepy for you. I think
Yeah.
the one that's based on Edgar Allan Poe might be a little bit more like appealing and like
Safe.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
intellectually stimulating. The
Mhm.
Haunting of Hill House is a little bit more like creepy
Is
in
it
a
like a
way.
possessed doll or something?
No, they kind of like get foreshadowed by their own passings and but they're alive. It's just like a really weird
Mhm.
thing and like they grew up in this house when they were kids, so like it goes through like their whole childhood of like growing
Mhm.
up and it's just like this like family of like 8 of them. If anybody watched The Haunting of Hill House, can you please comment down below? But there's like something about like this red door and like how no one has access to this area, so it's more like haunty horror-y that you might
Yeah.
avoid. But the other show is definitely like super stimulating. It's like psychological. It has like the literature connection. It's
Mhm.
really cool to see like those stories play out in like a TV show or something like that. But I also avoid horror as much as possible. So I wonder if like that's a spiritual people thing where we're just kind of
Yeah.
like, nope, don't need that in my subconscious.
Yeah, it kind of cuts too close to home for me. I think that if we're like, let's say we're watching that all the time
Hmm.
and we're also like focusing on energy work and like manifesting or whatever, like if that's in your energy, in your
Right.
mind, like you're gonna, I don't know, like bring you're open like you were saying earlier, like you're opening up yourself to those things.
Right.
Um,
That's why I don't watch the
just
news because the news is like a horror show too.
yeah, yeah, that's just as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Do
haunted
you
house
ha
everywhere.
do you have any like Halloween traditions?
So I used to go out all the time for Halloween,
Mhm.
just like your regular growing up partying of Halloween aspects. Um, but I never did anything like hauntedly.
Mhm.
There is a couple places in New Jersey that have like a haunting aspect to them, like I think like Clinton Road and like Ann's Road or like something. Like there are those things that like are available for you to like drive to or go to. But I'm not that stupid, so I don't do those things in a sense because I kind of feel like common sense vibes. Like if somebody's saying like, okay, Clinton Road, I don't even know if it's called that, is haunted, and then we're like, let's go on Halloween. Like you kind of just asked for it, you know? So like
Yeah,
I don't even want to figure out if it's real or not. I'm just gonna
yeah,
avoid it.
right.
So I kind of just done that, just like your regular. like going out partying type of Halloween stuff, like maybe some type of get-togethers. My dad used to get a bunch of dollar bills on
Oh yeah, we talked about that
Halloween.
in the
Yeah.
last part. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And he would just sit outside, give people dollars. So like at one point when I wasn't going out, that was entertaining for me to watch. Like
Mhm.
people show up there with or here looking for dollars. And then which we don't do anymore because he's not here anymore. So I'm so sorry to the children out there that are looking for the dollars. But I never really done anything like that crazy. I was always like a scaredy cat anyway, so I didn't like
Does
want
your
to.
sister, your witchy sister, do things?
Please, who knows what she's
Yeah.
doing? She might. I mean, now that she's like in a new state of life, like maybe she'll do certain things. I actually think she's going to a Halloween like event this year.
Mhm.
That's like different than, well, maybe she does do some type of things. I almost feel like in her position as well, like the things that she used to like do spells and witchy things for, like she ended up getting. But
Mhm.
just with life, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that is
And
so
then
true.
she ended up being like, okay, well, it
This
worked,
isn't,
but
yeah,
I don't want it anymore. So,
yeah,
and it was a little bit
that's
difficult
real.
for her to remove herself from it, which makes sense because if it was something that was quote unquote in a spell or in a ritual, then you have to re-ritual yourself out of it. And she
Hmm.
understood that too. And she like did like a cord cutting and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like she knows how to do all of those things. And it's funny because I always told her, I'm like, why don't you make an Etsy shop? Like, you know how many of my subscribers probably want to have a cord cutting and they want to do it or have somebody do it that knows what they're doing, you know? Um, Maybe she'll do it eventually, but yeah,
Yeah,
she does like
that's
those things.
interesting. Yeah, I know, like I was saying earlier, people who are like self-identify as a witch usually do something for Halloween, like a
Hmm.
witchy ritual, whatever. But
I used to light a lot of like chime candles, like these types of candles.
oh yeah,
I
that's
would like
kind of see.
engrave in it and stuff like that, like things that I wanted or just like certain
Mhm.
words and stuff. But I never really like came up with like a whole concoction of like certain seasonings and herbs and stuff like that. But I kind of feel like it goes hand in hand with like manifesting at the same time, where like
Yeah,
you'll meet people that say like you don't need any of that stuff. And then you'll meet people that say like, oh my God, no, you need those things. So I feel like it's kind of like just like mirroring your energy. So if that's what your energy is doing and if that's what it believes in, then that's going to be your reality. And if it thinks
yeah,
that you don't need to burn that or burn this, then you won't have to. So I feel like it really is strongly in like what you believe in.
yeah. And I think too, like Halloween being where the veil is the thinnest. If you're going to be doing any of that work, that's
Hmm.
a like always a good time to do it
Right. Yeah,
because you can be
definitely.
a little more connected, get a little more help
Right.
energetically.
Yeah, that I feel like that'd be a good idea, especially if like you want that other side assistance and things like
Mhm.
that, as in those types of senses. But I don't want
Or
to
to like
use the wrong thing, you know?
or like to like tap into like loved ones. Like,
Hmm.
and I again, if you're listening to this, be careful with what you're doing. But
Right.
if you want to connect with somebody who's passed on, Halloween's a great time to do that.
Hmm.
Obviously, like set good intentions and cleanse the air.
Right.
Um, and probably somebody might not be the person you want will come through,
Hmm.
by that evening or the next day, which is pretty wild.
It's actually interesting that you said that too, because when I saw my dad, he looked like he
Mhm.
came from somewhere,
Mhm.
and when his energy like left, I saw like the heads of like a bunch of different people. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Y'all go back over there.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is very true. That's why I do like altars. So my dad has like an altar. Like he has his, we give him
Interesting.
water, we give him food, which I actually haven't given
Yeah.
him food in a while. I might just go downstairs and give him some food now that we're talking about it. And I kid you not, like when I fill up his water, I like renew the stuff. Like I found like an old like Lord of the Rings bookmark that had the ring on it. So I took the ring off and I put it on his like little area Um, so making them offerings is really good if you want to
That's
specify on
that's
someone.
really good for haunted areas as well. So, pro tip,
Mm.
if you're being haunted and you can identify who or what that thing is, let's say it's a little girl that's
Mm.
haunting the house, and you
Right.
give her a gift that she would like, and then set the intention, that can clear things up.
That's a good. I'm about to offer the spirits in my suite something. I'm gonna put some candy on top where I think the portal is.
Yeah. But
Huh?
you have to do things that
Yeah.
you would think that they would like,
Right.
which is maybe not, easy to do, but
Yeah. You have to like figure that out.
yeah, and that's why like identifying who or what it is
Hmm.
important. Um,
Yeah.
and everyone loves gifts, even spirits, I guess, ghosts
Yeah.
and ghouls and
I feel like
goblins.
they like to be like alive in whatever way, shape, or form. So I
Hmm.
feel like if they're being offered something, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm here. Because why would you offer something that's not here anything? So
Yeah.
I definitely feel like they like that acknowledgement in any way, shape, or form, and giving them
Hmm.
something. It feel I from my experience, like almost every single time like I re-up my dad's area, like something happens, like flicker or weird sign or something in the
Yeah.
energy. And it doesn't last, but I think they like to be brought alive. So make it
Yeah.
alter, if anything.
That's so true. Um,
Yeah, so if anybody has any stories where they have gave offerings or had any like freaky experiences where you're just kind of like, no, that had to have been something, or even had some seance experiences or some witchy tips, put them in the comment section down below. And next episode, we are going to be talking about zodiac signs. We're going to go through the whole zodiac wheel and give our indication of kind of how we experience those types of signs in life and things like that. So that should be a really fun episode as well.
yeah, we definitely want to hear your guys' ghost stories. So if you have any good ones, please, please, please share below. And then we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you then. Thanks for
Bye.
watching. Bye.